Hey guys, how's it going? This is Trent, and today I wanted to do a little bit of paper drawing for you. That's right. We're going to be drawing Creed, which is a comic book that I made when I was a teenager in the 1990s. Woo, way back. And I used to draw on paper all the time. That was my thing. Now it feels so weird to me. No Command Z. There's no undo. So the first thing that I do is I draw like a big circle for the head, and then I draw a line down the middle. You've probably seen this process before. I'm not going to blow anybody away with my process here, but I'm kind of dividing the sphere in half. And it's an elongated sphere with a little point at the end of the chin. And then I kind of place where the nose would be, kind of sticking out from that. So I'm almost, in a sense, drawing the contour of how the nose would stick out from this spherical shape, elliptical sphere shape of the head. And then I'm placing the upper eyelid to kind of get a sense of where my eyeballs are going to be. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm doing this. This is not a realistic art style, you know. I'm just kind of making, well, it's got a little bit of an anime influence, although at the time I hadn't really ever seen an anime. That kind of a thing wasn't even available. But the way that I do it now is I try to think of them like orbs within the head, and then I draw in the pupils there, and let's get some eyebrows in there, and kind of drew and redrew the mouth a couple of times. And he kind of always has this little bit of a serious smirk going on. That's the default Mark Farley look from Creed. Now the hair is a bit tricky, so I want to make sure that I don't cover up his eye, but he always has hair in his face. This was kind of from a grunge era when everybody kind of had this long hair, and his hair, Mark Farley's hair, kind of came out almost like a big pumpkin. He kind of had just a big pumpkin head shape. This was, I guess, probably inspired by the old Pearl Jam, Eddie Vedder look, the kind of grunge surfer look. And he always wore a t-shirt, and I would do this kind of a thick collar in the t-shirt, and he always kind of had his shoulders slouched, and then I would just kind of gesture in that big tuft of hair that would kind of come off to the side. Sometimes he would tuck it behind his ear, which I thought was a cool look for the time. There was one issue where he tied it back into a ponytail, I guess almost more like a man bun, though. And he was not a fighter. He was definitely more of a kind of just a punk grunge kid. So maybe a little bit of a hippie even. He had huge feet and all that stuff. But here we get into drawing the big pumpkin head. And I actually don't like how this particular one turned out. I think I'm still, even after 20 something years, I'm still trying to figure out the best way to draw his hair. I don't know that I draw like this at all anymore, but I wanted to, just for the sake of nostalgia, I wanted to dig into the way that I used to draw him, which was always kind of like with this beanbag body or a potato sack body. So if you think about the body like it's a potato sack, and it's kind of slouched over and bent at the belly. Then I grabbed this brush. Now, back in the day, I'd use an actual brush and dip it in a kind of an India ink. But nowadays, they have these fancy Japanese brush pens that come with ink already in them. And I bought those on Amazon. And I'm just kind of going in. It's sort of, the nice thing about it is you get this really nice, thick weight to it when you need it. But you can also get really tiny, tiny little details. And I found that this was the first time in a long time that I had ever done penciling before going straight to ink. A lot of my acrylic or gouache paintings that I've been doing lately, I just go straight into the paints, and then I sort of figure out how to make sense of the mess. That's kind of the interesting thing about working with on paper, is that as opposed to digital, with digital, you can keep undoing it until you get it like exactly what you sort of had in your mind. With paper, sometimes you get what is kind of sometimes referred to as a happy accident, which is just something where maybe you drew a line too fat or something like that, and you have to just sort of make it work. And then you sort of learn to be okay with the mistakes. And I think that that's something that would really be good for your mental state as well if you approach more things that way. Just go with the mistakes. It's fine. Nowadays, we sort of expect perfection from ourselves and from others because we have all the undos and the no consequences. Well, you know what? Maybe sometimes you just got to roll with the things that aren't perfect. That said, I'm still always kind of making a mental note to myself to improve on things that I had done before, even in this piece. The eyeballs, I didn't used to really think of them as rounded. And if you look up the way that I used to draw Creed's eyes, they were very blocky and square because I didn't really ever draw from life. And I had no real understanding of how forms turned and things like that. But the thing to think about is like do a lot of life studies and do a lot of studies of physical objects in the real world space, and that'll impact your even your cartoony drawings, and you'll start to think of things as cylinders, and you'll start to think of them as circles and ellipses and primitive shapes that you can sort of form a 3D vision of it in your mind, and that helps to inform where you place shadows. And every single little drawing, even these little headshot drawings, I'm sort of building in my mind like a 3D model of the character, and I'm feeding that into my subconscious, and I'm sort of constructing shapes in my mind for how this character comes together, even memorizing things like the space between the nose and the eyes and the kinds of expressions that he might have and that sort of a thing. I didn't want to do too much of like an update to the character. I wanted to be true to what he was originally in the 90s and not try to completely reinvent him. Right here, this is where you can really see the advantage of that brush, the ink brush, because if you need to fill in a large area of black, man, you don't have to switch out pens or anything like that. It's all in one, and it gets a nice kind of a feathery painted look too, which I like. I really like that kind of bristly sumie, almost Japanese sumie style of brushwork going on. So around the hair, I don't want to get too much into it with this one, but a lot of times with the fatter lines, you want to do those in the more shaded areas, and then the areas that are more lit, like the top side, if you know where your light source is, it's going to be a little bit thinner lines. Although I didn't go into that too much with this one. This was really a refresher for me. I haven't used these tools in a long time, so but I'm trying to get more comfortable with it, and I want to do a lot more of these. It's just kind of neat to draw on paper again for the first time in a while. It's also really nice to have a physical thing. It's nice to have a physical drawing that you could give to somebody, or that you could, draw in a card, for instance, for somebody's birthday. Every now and then I'll do a little doodle in a birthday card or something like that for somebody in my family, and it's something that's sort of a keepsake. It's the digital just sort of becomes something that's sort of throwaway, but the physical copy of something, or the physical original drawing, can potentially last, well, for a lot longer, I think, and it can have a little bit more meaning and a little bit. There's actually a great deal of value in the physical, having this physical item. It's like an artifact, That's sort of lost with the digital. In fact, I think there's also a kind of a sense of pride because I didn't use any undo. I just lived with the mistakes that I made. There was a lot of mistakes made with this. If this were digital, I'd keep reworking that hair, that tuft of hair that kind of comes out from the head. Instead, with ink, you kind of have to like cover it up sometimes. If something doesn't work, it's like, can I just put all of that in shadow? Like, I know several artists who do that. They just kind of end up putting a lot of it in shadow. And I actually found I really love how this brush breaks apart the ink kind of, when you go fat with the lines, you get this kind of like noisy stuff going on, So I used to be really rigid, and I would try to just get like a perfectly clean line and things like that. Now I want to feather it and fade it and get the chunkiness of the brush in there, and maybe go in with like some white gouache or white paint or something, and get some negative space going. And I don't know, that's just, maybe it just comes from loosening up and doing it so much for so long. It may just be the influence of digital. I would grab like a white paint digitally and fill in my negative spaces. So here what I'm doing is I'll kind of add these little hatches to the corners of things that I want to turn the form a little bit more. I also was thinking about like, where would the shadows be to give it a little bit more depth? Like there would be a little bit of shadow on that back shoulder underneath his chin and kind of going up his neck a little bit. And that might make him feel like he's got just a little bit more depth to him, that sort of a thing. This little drawing took me about 10 minutes to do. It's a test. What this really is, guys, this is a test of my broadcast system. No, I wanted to test to see, will my camera capture paper drawings, 1, and 2, can I do some of these cool little drawings in a pretty short period of time? So I'm really kind of still trying to find how, some new kinds of content that I want to do on my channel. So if you like this sort of thing, if you'd like to see more of this and possibly dig in a little bit more into the tutorial aspect of drawing on paper, it would be a lot of fun to do these sort of things. They're not they're not as involved as doing a big 12 or 20 hour painting. So for me, they're fun. It was really neat to sit down and draw an old character that I had drawn years and years ago, and when he looked back at me, I felt like I could just hear him saying some of the things that he used to say. He's a person to me, and I think his look right now is kind of him saying, "Why the hell haven't you drawn me in 5 years?" I think that's the exact look that he's given me right now. And I tweeted this, and somebody immediately asked, "Hey, will you ever bring Creed back?" And I never rule out anything. I think if there was enough people who said, "Hey man, I really miss Creed, I want more Creed," I would do it. I would definitely do it. I've got a ton of story ideas that I'd like to do, but maybe not as a comic. And if it was a comic, maybe with a different creative team. So that's my Creed drawing. Didn't turn out too bad. I wish his hair was a little bit different. Maybe I'll get a chance to do another little doodle of him. But I want to do more of these more frequently. So I'm going to make this one available if you would like to purchase it. I'll try to make it cheap, and over on my Gumroad channel, every one of these pieces that I do, I'm going to make them available for you to buy so that you can have a little piece of art from me. Something that you could frame or keep in a book somewhere. If you have ideas for future sketches that you'd like to see me do, please leave those in the comments section below. If you're interested in picking up the Creed comic and reading about the character, or picking up any of my digital art tutorials, I have all that stuff available over on my Gumroad channel, as well as some digital art brushes and things like that. And of course, if you like the freebie stuff, that's cool too. Just don't forget to subscribe and come back. I post probably about once or twice every week at minimum, with a lot of product reviews and digital art tools as well. And until next time, dudes, I'll catch y'all mañana. Ciao, baby. Yeah.